is the Labour Party actually doing any reflecting, or are the same people saying the same things?
Well, I think there is a lot of reflection going on. And I think, whatever Len McCluskey has said, I think most people accept that all the things you just talked about were factors in why Labour lost. I think the media's treatment of Jeremy Corbyn was extraordinarily hostile, and in my mind very unfair for somebody who.
Would you say that Ed Miliband's treatment was any different?
Probably not. No,
Right.
not sort of significantly.
So would you say
Ed Miliband lost an election as well?
So would you say that the
unfair.
Labour Party should have been prepared in choosing their next leader to make sure that actually they don't give enough opportunities for the mainstream media to take that leader down?
Well, I think much of the mainstream media is terribly malign, and in order to win their support, you've got to be quite a malign figure. So. Choosing the leader on the basis of who the Sun or the Daily Mail is going to like is not a good idea, because anyone with sort of progressive values who wants to help working people, those at the bottom and in the middle, do more to combat climate change, curb corporate power, probably isn't going to win favour with the Mail or the Sun.
Corbyn actually took particular exception to his treatment by the BBC, which is obviously our national broadcaster and non-partisan.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't think the sort of BBC's coverage of the general election was brilliant either.
Well, this is interesting, Luke, isn't it? Because you say that, being on the left side, let's say, I can bring out for you, I can even open our box of trolls here who contact the radio station sometimes, who are from the right side, who will tell you exactly the same thing, that the BBC's coverage of the general election was nothing short of the middle-class, metropolitan, liberal elite, Ramonas. I mean, you name all the cliches, they're in there. So how can it, maybe the BBC got it absolutely right by upsetting both sides.
I don't think getting criticism from both sides equates to sort of doing a good job. But, I mean, I think the sort of, the main issue with... Labour and the media was more with the sort of tabloid press than with the BBC. But I was saying I think Corbyn's treatment by the media was very unfair.
But
I was going
to
go on and say that that's not at all the only reason why Labour lost. I think there were many factors. Such as those you outlined. Brexit was another factor. Corbyn's failings as a leader were a huge factor. I think the manifesto, while it was individual policies might have been individually popular, as a sort of coherent strategy wasn't necessarily well received.
The vast majority of Labour Party members were pro-Remain, categorically pro-Remain, not ambiguously pro-Remain. But actually, Len McCluskey decided that that's not the stance that he wanted, and he prevented the party from taking a pro-Remain stance. Now, who knows what might have happened had the party... But it would have not been ambiguous. But this whole idea that you've given the party back to its members, it's just nonsense. It never happened.
Well, I mean, that's a supremely simplistic take on Len McCluskey's part.
That's me. Simplistic.
Not one I'd endorse. But sort of pivoting to Rebecca Long Bailey, I completely agree with Annabelle. I think Lisa Nandy's been by far the most impressive candidate in the leadership race so far. I get to vote in the election. I haven't decided who I'm going to go for yet, but I think leaning towards Lisa Nandy. But I think it's it's sort of hugely patronising and misconceived to think of Rebecca Long Bailey as some kind of puppet of Corbyn or Len McCluskey. She's of a completely different generation from them.
Why doesn't she disassociate herself from the same people who were around the Corbyn leadership?
Len McCluskey,
if she's her own person.
Because Len McCluskey's the leader of a trade union with 1.2 million members, representing working people up and down the country, and he's democratically elected.
But John Lusman doesn't have to run her campaign. If she's in charge of her own campaign, right? She can choose her own campaign person. That doesn't have to be the leader of Momentum.
But he's been proven. Momentum is a successful organisation. It's enthused a lot of people, and he's got a track record.
Back to leader that lost two general elections. Well, one of them catastrophically.
But won 2 leadership elections, which is what she's going to do. I think
you can win the leadership election and not get into power. What's the point of that?
But then you can win the leadership election. You don't have to have the same person run your general election campaign. And again, I'm a Momentum member, and I don't sort of recognise this characterisation of Momentum as this sort of sinister organisation. I think the worst thing you can say about people who are Momentum members is they're possibly slightly naive. It's mainly young people who want to live in a slightly fairer, more equal society and to do something about climate change.
But do you appreciate that a lot of this has to do with perception? A lot of it has to do with perception, not around just Labour members.
That doesn't mean you can't say when perceptions are extremely unfair. Mm-hmm. And in Rebecca Long-Bailey's case, and as I say, I'm probably not going to vote for her as leader, but the idea that she's a sort of puppet of Corbyn and Landsman and Len McCluskey or whatever is totally false and slightly sort of weird and misogynistic. It denies her own agency. She was as you say, she was the sort of shadow BE's secretary and came up with what I think are a lot of good policy ideas, and not that sort of radical left, common to what you see in other North European countries, and also very common to what was in the Liberal Democrat manifesto.
I mean, it doesn't feel like we've got control of our money, our laws and our borders when the US are saying, look, if you do a deal with Huawei, your trade deal is going to be compromised. That doesn't feel to me as, hey, we've entered the global market and we can do as we please, Luke.
Yeah, and I mean, what's the most sort of sovereign country? It's like North Korea, probably, which is completely, isolated from every other economy and does exactly as it pleases. Is that a great place to live or a great model for the UK? I'm not sure that it is. I think you're completely right that economies are interconnected now, and whether we're in the EU or we're not, we're going to be shaped by decisions that our lives in this country are going to be shaped by decisions that other countries take. And within the EU, we have the opportunity. Obviously, we take laws from Brussels, but we also shape them. I mean, I do a lot of work on sort of sustainable finance, for example, and green bonds, making the city greener and whatnot. And the sort of EU's working group on that is completely dominated by people based in London. So it's not just the case that being in the EU means we take laws from Brussels, but it also means we in the UK shape the regulations that affect a market of hundreds of millions of people. And then the US and China, to a certain extent, take their cues from what Europe is doing. So in many ways, we are going to be much less powerful as a result of coming out of the EU.
But our power in the EU is so diluted. I mean, we're one of nearly 30 member states. So, yes, we have a seat at the table, but it's a very large table. And the argument, I can see both sides. Do you want to be part of a much larger market that wields a lot of influence globally, or do you want to be a kind of mid-sized nation but be able to be sovereign and strike deals?
But I also think we have very disproportionate power within the EU, and I mean, I'm sure you've sort of seen this, like working in financial services, that all the sort of big decisions on financial regulation are very much shaped by the City of London and people working there. And that influence over the entire EU market is going to be lost when we leave, and we're going to find that we have much less clout when we're negotiating with America and China and other countries, because we're in terms of sort of parity, we're a pinprick to them, whereas the EU is the biggest trading bloc in the world.
I don't want to rehash old arguments, but I think it is worth saying this was a paper published by Jim Grace. The number of laws since 1996 to 2014 he looked at. There was a total of 34,177 laws that were sort of ratified in that period. Does anybody want to have a guess at how the percentage of laws that the EU override? There was an override from the EU, so the UK voted no, but we were overridden. Does anybody want to guess?
I suspect it's pretty tiny, but...
How tiny? Annabelle?
1%, I guess.
I mean, we have been told for ages that we need to take back control of our laws. take back control of what percentage that we didn't have, do you think?
5%? I don't know.
Yeah,
Perhaps not even as much as that.
It's 0.21.
Yeah.
That's this whole thing has happened because it's a total number of 0.21.
Labour suffered its worst defeat since 1935. By 2024, since 1979, Labour will only have been in power for 13 years. All of the elections that they won were won by Tony Blair, who has himself said that Labour needs to come back to reality and stop sort of living in a fantasy world. So I'm interested to know how you envisage anybody managing to win the leadership but then go on to win an election when the two things seem to be at odds with one another, and that to win the leadership you've got to appeal to the 500,000 Labour Party members who are themselves off by and large on the hard left, whereas to win a general election, a lot of the policies you've talked about are more centrist. But another thing, just off the back of you saying that you might back Keir Starmer, I'd be really interested to know how you feel the impact of the optics of that will be, because of course you've got all these women in the race and we could see a man win. This is the Labour Party. This is a party that is supposed to be fighting for equality. So how's it going to look if you back another man and the party still hasn't had a female leader?
Well, there's a couple of questions there. I mean, on the issue of winning the membership and then persuading the country, I think a lot of members are desperate to see Labour as a credible force. I think there was an awful lot of people who were, for example, campaigning with me and in one of the target seats next door in Harrow East and Watford, who were absolutely gutted that we did. That not only did we not win those target seats, but that we did as badly across the rest of the country as we did. And I, from the conversations I have with many members, they do get the need for change. It's true there are, particularly in Momentum, a group of people who just want to carry on as we are, and that is simply not credible, given the scale of defeats we've had. And it's the responsibility, I think, of people like me to try and hammer home that message. And for a new leader, they will have to take the Labour Party on a journey to recognise how you put an election-winning coalition back together in the way that Tony Blair did so successfully. On your point about a woman versus a man as leader, I mean, I think it is a significant step forward that Labour has got 4 out of its 5 leadership candidates who are women. I nominated a woman, a very strong woman, to get into the race and to be leader. I still hope she can win, but that's looking more challenging. And then I look at the 2 front runners, and you have to make a choice as to who is most likely to make the difficult choices that Labour needs to be made if we're going to win. And for me, if it's not going to be Emily, then I want it to be Keir Starmer.
Giving terrorists, before they are released, or people who have been arrested for terrorism, lie detector tests in order to find out whether they have abandoned their terrorist ways and whether they've been rehabilitated. Is that decision based on any factual evidence whatsoever?
I think it's a very good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Lie detector tests are used for many things, and it seems to me when you're dealing with something as serious as terrorism, why should any innocent person object to taking a lie detector test?
Does it worry you at all? Does it worry you at all that lie detector tests can be, for starters, easily beaten? And second of all, as an example, no lie detector test is ever admissible in a court of law anywhere in the world. Does that make you think that perhaps they're not as reliable as you imagine them to be?
Well, look, I'm not suggesting that we do the lie detector test such as you used to see on the Jeremy Kyle show.
But that is what a lie detector test is, Sir.
Well,
Sir David.
I think there are any variety of lie detector tests. And if the government were if the Home Office were going to embark upon this, they would adopt the most rigorous lie detector test.
There is only one version of a lie detector test, Sir David, and the Supreme Court in the United States in 1998 deemed that a lie detector test, getting information out of a suspect, is no more reliable than a toss of a coin. Now, why would you want to make a decision of whether or not to release a terrorist or indeed a paedophile, they are subjected to lie detector test, on the toss of a coin?
I don't think Priti Patel for one moment is suggesting that the decision would just be made on the outcome of a lie detector
But
test.
why involve a lie detector test when we know that they are not admissible in court? They're as reliable as tossing a coin. And I say all this to you, Sir David, as someone who has sat a lie detector test and beaten it.
Well, look, I have no idea the circumstances of your taking this lie detector test. But I do not think that Priti Patel would have said what she is reported to have said without good evidence from her officials in the Home Office. And no doubt, if they are going to embark upon this plan, we will hear much greater detail about how rigorous it would be. But I go back to the original thing I said. Why would any innocent person refuse to take a lie detector test? I don't understand that at all.
But that goes back to arguments that are, if you've got nothing to hide, then why not let the government just read all your emails and search all your internet history? It's got to do with privacy. It also has to do, and I'll tell you why innocent people don't want to take lie detector tests, is because they don't work. And if you're innocent, you might be found guilty because the examiner might misread your lie detector test. And plenty of people have been through that process where they've taken a lie detector test, they've been innocent, but been found guilty because the examiner didn't do their job properly. I just put it to you that you are a supporter of Priti Patel's policy, but it's quite clear to me it's not based on any factual evidence. And from what you've told me, I don't think you, Sir David, with all due respect, understand how lie detector tests work, and yet you are willing to let decisions be based on something that's been categorically proved to be no more than a hoax or a scam.
Well, you're not giving me detailed evidence for the assertions that you're making. I'm simply responding to something that Priti is purported to have said.
So as someone who's beaten one personally, I did it you can check it out. It's online. I beat it on a TV show for the Discovery Channel. It was called Man vs. Expert. The examiner was a former FBI examiner working for the New York Police Department. And I was trained in one day to beat it. Essentially, all you need to know, Sir David, is that each of us, when we lie, have different traits. Some people's heart rate goes up. Some people's sweat response go up. They're all individually different. So actually ascribing any of the things that a lie detector test measures to that of deception is simply false. And I would think that a 1998 Supreme Court decision saying that they're no more reliable than a toss of a coin is all you need to just discard them.
If everything you say is proved to be the case, then I'm absolutely certain the Home Office then will not go forward with this plan to use lie detector tests.